maximize the time that we have by living and trying to be our best selves as often as possible. Enjoy the moment and be your best self now.
This podcast encourages and empowers you to create your own unique real story, develop your own unique real statement, and discover your own unique real self. The power is yours. Good morning, Peter Fornatale. Previously, episode 1359 of the 12-Minute Converse podcast. It's been just 2 years. This is my horse voice. It's been just 2 years, 3 months, 8 days, 14 hours, and 45 minutes since we last recorded this conversation, right? Peter, how are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. Always happy to talk with you, my friend, and good to be back on the airwaves. I can't believe it's been that long, actually.
Yeah.
I would have guessed it was last year we spoke, but I've been following your progress, and I love the concept of the show. I'm very happy you reached out, and we get to be talking right now.
Yeah. So tell us, DRF Players Podcast was going on. Chris Jericho is someone that you worked with on books. That was a big part of the conversation, right? And where Jonathan was your co-host, right? So how have things evolved?
Well, a lot has changed. I have actually left Daily Racing Form, where I did a podcast for them that I started with my friend Matt Bernier in 2014. At the start of last year, I left there and started my own media company. And now, instead of podcasting being one small part of a larger job, it's my whole job.
Wow.
And I'm not only hosting and editing and producing my show, but we've got some companion shows. We have a whole podcasting network about horse racing. And it's been an amazing change for the good in my life. And it's just been so interesting now.
Well, it's good that in your part of your world that people still say, like, okay, now in my part of the world, people, what? A pop, and they're usually like that, right? So that's really cool. So how has it been going? Like, what's going on? How are you doing it? There's so many questions.
Yeah, well, I have invested in my own home recording studio. I'm actually not sitting in it now. I'm upstairs. I'm fortunate enough. People always talk about working at home and how it works for some people. It doesn't work for other people. The way I make it work for me is having get home that when I go there, I work. It's very nice to be able to have a dedicated space in the home to get the work done. And it makes it all possible. And by investing in some really good technology, I feel like we've got one of the honestly better sounding podcasts of the ones that I listen to regularly, and I'm hoping that that's just going to continue to be the case. It's one of these things where I figure it's investing in yourself, and I think that's something that people don't always do enough of. And I'm in this position now where I can be entrepreneurial, and hopefully that investment is going to pay off. The first year was great, and we're looking to bring in some new clients and expand tremendously in 2020 as well.
That's wonderful. How did your wife adjust? Or was it her idea? Was it your idea? How did that work?
It's a great question. No, she was extremely supportive. And of course that helps. And she has much more of a normal job. She works in book publishing. And so from the beginning, we didn't really know. I didn't really know how viable this was going to be as a way of making a living. I mean, I knew we'd do okay, and we'd at least have some supplementary income. And she was very supportive of that. But as it turned out, I ended up exceeding any expectation in terms of bringing in clients. And very quickly, it became clear that, yes, I'm now going to be working harder than when I was working for a company, but I'm also going to be making more money. So then that made the adjustment easier. It also became very apparent very quickly I was also going to have a lot more fun. And of course, that means a lot as well.
I was just about to chip in with that. I'm not sure if work is the word that qualifies, because it just... Of course, you're doing more time, right? But there's something about the work that helps. Like, I can understand how entrepreneurs who are doing what they love can live to like 95, right? Because there's something that fuels you with what you're doing when it's fun, isn't it?
That's right. You lose the time. I think of, I'm a big practitioner of yoga, and that idea of being in the moment. And you just like when you're in a proper flow, in a proper like meditative flow, and that's like all there is in the world. And it's just in a way, it's like being a kid playing a game, and you just sort of lose yourself in the moment, and that's all there is. And with my work, very fortunately, a lot of the time, that's how it feels. Now, granted, there are some things, tedious bits of editing and things that I have to do sometimes that remind me of proper work, just like, shoveling the stable is work, but it's got to get done. And sometimes you just got to shovel and get stuff done. But I'm very fortunate that in my balance of life, I would say 80% of the time I'm like a kid playing, and then 20% I have to do some shoveling. But, I'll take that.
Your daughter is in the mix there, right? How has she adjusted? Is she down in the studio, or does she have nothing to do with what goes on with down there?
No, she's a regular on the show. Mostly she would be at school when I'm recording, but there are those days like we had in the last couple of weeks where she will be watching her while I'm recording, and I will typically try to use the electronic babysitter, the television, in that instance. But she will typically wander in at least once during the show and ask for me to cut up an avocado for her, or find a show she can't find, or something. So we've tried to turn the potential bug of having the interruption into a feature, and I'll invite her over and she'll say hello to the audience. And yes, she's 7 years old in first grade. We had a lot of fun yesterday, actually. We participated in a chili cook-off at a local brewery.
Sweet.
And while we did not win, we had a great time, and it was a great excuse to see friends and family. And as I explained to her, we did our best, and we made some darn delicious chili. It was one of the first ones to sell out.
Your father was a broadcaster, right? And to see what you were doing, it'll be interesting to see in the next 2 decades or so, right? What she ends up doing in the midst of the influence that has occurred. There's this voice that we hear, Peter, the same voice that urged you on, right, to jump into this full time. And amongst that voice, there are so many other voices. How do you ensure that you're listening to the voice that, I don't know if it's correct, or the one that best aligns with what you need to do?
That's a great question, and not an easy one to answer. For me, it's a very intuitive process, and but I'm not somebody who, I say intuitive, and that makes it sound like I'm acting all the time by feel. But the fact is that I feel like between the relationships I've had throughout my life with different mentors and the study I've done in the various fields that I'm interested in, I feel like all that work and learning and data that I've accumulated is what's behind the feel and the guiding voice that one hears and adheres to in one's life. So I feel like for me, there's not like, oh, should I listen to this voice or listen to another voice? It's just, I just hear one thing or feel a hand on my shoulder. And it is, you mentioned my father, and it is funny that now my profession, after spending so many years doing writing and other things, has me just like him in front of a microphone. And I do feel like in some sort of way, cosmic way, that's very appropriate. And Perrin has already dabbled a little bit in the family business. She and I we've done the last couple of years now, a little Christmas music segment for my father's old radio show. And she's got great talent. She's been picking the songs and talking a little. But I think as time goes on, she's just going to get more and more comfortable with public speaking and in front of the microphone. And, I want her to do what she wants to do. Currently, she wants to study medicine, which is a lofty goal I would not dissuade her from. But I like the idea that she has an aptitude for the family business as well, and can hopefully feel that hand on her shoulder moving forward.
The family business, the concept of legacy opens us up to the conversation that, sometimes some put on the back shelf, some put it in the forefront of their thinking, which is the possibility of dying today or tomorrow. How do you approach that conversation or that possibility?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, it's a little bit of a phobia that Perrin has. She's had nights where going to sleep, she'll be upset and she doesn't want to say why. And we eventually coax it out of her, and she's thinking about mortality already at age 7. And I wish I could tell her, those fears are going to go away. It's just something again. I think back to yoga, which we were talking about before, and the idea of just trying to maximize the time that we have by living and trying to be our best selves as often as possible, and not to just try to go from one task to another in life, but to try to really enjoy the moment and be your best self now. And yes, we're always practicing and we're working on things, but the more you live in the moment and make the most of that, and try to be the best person you can be for your loved ones, then whenever that time comes. I mean, there's nothing we can do about it, and I don't want to let anxiety about that alter the time that I have while I'm here, or change the impact of the kind of person that I can be while I'm here.
Peter, it's such a grand opportunity, I'll tell you, to chip in with a call. It's like a podcast accountability partner that you didn't sign up for. I'd say, Peter, what's going on? Are you doing what you said you were doing? And again, you've not given up, my friend. And, it's actually motivational and inspirational to a level that I believe those that listen can be impacted to know that, hey, you could have a dream. And yes, it takes work. However, if you stick to it, of course, there are the ups and downs, the trials and tribulations. However, your story could be this story in whatever genre is applicable. So, my friend, I thank you for that. In closing, is there anything else you'd like to share with our amazing audience?
Well, just to say thank everybody for listening. Podcasters like you and I, we rely on having engaged audience members. If anything I said is intriguing to anybody out there, if you want to learn more about the great sport of horse racing, I'm here as a resource. Twitter is probably the easiest way to reach out. You can hit me up there. I'm at Looms Boldly, LOOMSBOLDLY, or I can be found over at inthemoneypodcast.com. And thank you, my friend, once again for the chance to talk to your great listeners today.
Well, there we go, folks. Peter Fornatale, again, a pleasure I treasure. Thank you for being on what is inspired by 12-Minute Convos with Angel Jones. This podcast is produced by Pod Edits. Visit podedits.com for professional podcast publishing.